International Court of Justice and Rule of Law. August 18, 2023 UNSC Live Debate. Preliminary Historical Truths. International Court of Justice 1945. Set from the first agreed historical precedent 1791 J Treaty between the United States and Great Britain, USA, USSR, China, and UK did in this public declaration, and in one voice say, of establishing at the earliest practicable date a general international organization, based on the principle of the sovereign equality of all peace-loving states, and open to membership by all such states, large and small, for the maintenance of international peace and security. This in 1943 was the United States of America, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, China, and UK, whom declared the International Court of Justice to be the International Court of Arbitration and Dispute Settlement between any and all nations or regions of the world. France would join as a United Nations Security Council permanent member following their liberation from Nazi Germany 1945. This court is found under Article 33 of the United Nations Charter 1945. Rule of Law Post-International Court of Justice 1948. NATO and the Truman Doctrine 1947 to 1949. President Harry S. Truman, be to assert that the United States would provide economic and military aid to both countries, as well as to any other nation struggling against an attempt at subjugation. The presentation for debate. Should Canada be removed from the United Nations, NATO, and be dismembered/redesigned by the United Nations Security Council as was South Africa 1994? United Nations International Court of Justice. On June 26, 1945, Canada joined the United Nations and signed on to the United Nations Charter. They agreed to all the principal organs and chapters within. Preamble: We the People. Chapter 1, Article 2, to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, and to take other appropriate measures to strengthen universal peace. In 1867, Canada's Crown crafted the Constitutional Acts of Canada, and defined sovereignty as subjects, pledging their sovereignty to Great Britain, and all heirs of the royal family. I bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, and all his heirs. This remains affirmed in all 11 amendments from 1867 to today 2023. The title of Canadian subjects is listed 3 times, including on the final page of the documents consolidated. As for the provincial constitutions known as the various executive powers acts of the provinces and attached territories, they are absolute autocratic crown authority over subjects and savages defined. In 1876, Canada crafted the Indian Act, effectively taking all red-skinned domestic human beings known as ceded/unceded Indians, Métis and Inuit, Yupik, Siberian Indians, Inuk and American Indians, and removed their sovereignty, humanity, self-government, self-determination, and placed them on 0.2% of Canada's lands as unsustainable reserves, placed third-class subjects on 9% of Canada, defined them as savages or subjects, removed their parental rights, culture, language, education, health, economic being, and began the first codified colonial genocide until the matching constitutional monarchy, Nazi Germany's 1933 Enabling Act, and the constitutional monarchy, pre-apartheid South Africa's Asiatic Land Tenure and Indian Representation Act, 1946. The Crown government codified as first-class elected or appointed kept 90% of Canada solely for themselves, known forevermore as provincial or federal Crown land. No subject or savage defined can occupy or harvest in Skyway on the Crown's land. South Africa apartheid laws would continue on in the Canadian Indian Act legacy until 1984. The UNSC Chapter 7 and 8 applications and the International Court of Justice would see the major nations intervene. Canada rewrote their criminal code in 1985, making genocide a slap on the wrist misdemeanor, and decolonization punishable of up to 10 years in prison and a king's ransom fine. In 1994, South Africa was completely dismembered and redesigned by the United Nations Security Council permanent 5 members: Russia, China, USA, France, and UK. South Africa was made a new republic. An end to the constitutional monarchy, defined savages, defined subjects, and land returned to we the people. Immediately, Canada sent a letter to the United Nations declaring that they would no longer accept the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice and crafted the International Commission of Jurists. From now on, no Canadian subject or Canadian savage defined by Canadian law can go to the International Court of Justice. They are only offered Canada's Crown Court. On April 4, 1949, Canada joined NATO with the principle of stopping any nation facing subjugation. Upon King George VI's death, Canada assumes control over all Governor-Generals and Lieutenant Governors/Territorial Commissioners. All British Crown removed. They immediately cancel USA's oldest precedent treaty, the 1791 J Treaty. No red-skin Indians from USA can freely enter into Canada or gain citizenship. They are defined as savages too, since 1956. World War I and World War II are the colonial constitutional monarchy wars over subjugation of peoples defined as savages all over the world. The Allies USA and Russia were victorious over both the defeated Axis power constitutional monarchies and the spent Allied constitutional monarchies. The late joining of USA and Russia entering World War II can be easily traced to the 1941 Atlantic Charter and the 1941 to 1945 Moscow, Tehran, Yalta and Potsdam conferences. USA and Russia have more in common than first meets the eye, and the development of the United Nations post-1945 has the promise of a better world to come that certainly never predated it during the reign of colonial monarchies. USA, Russia, China and France define people as citizens, not subjects. Perhaps finding a path to peace with Ukraine and Russia begins with a careful lens over subjugation, and how the United Nations International Court of Justice views NATO members legally codifying and constituting subjugation domestically against the Charter of the UN, its principal organs, NATO's primary role in our rule-based order, and the defining of savages as non-human beings in 2023. Canada is the oldest running example of current savagery and subjugation in the world today. A world where it was promised, never again. Thank you for your time. Sincerely, Dave Bjorkman, a third-class subject in the constitutional monarchy known as the UN State, Alberta, Canada.